Drive Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to Miami. Welcome to the Hard Rock Stadium where the stage is set for qualifying. We're about to set the grid for the Miami Grand Prix and we've already had some action here in Miami. We had the sprint race earlier on and yep, you've guessed it. It was Max Verstappen who converted pole position to the win. Can he do the same this afternoon and take pole position in front of the crowds here around the Hard Rock Stadium? Since the sprint race, we've had lots to enjoy. We've had the singer Ed Sheeran performing on stage, wowing the fans. But now it is time to turn our attention back to the track. It is time to turn up the heat here in Miami because it is time for qualifying. It's Rosanna Tennant with you down in the pit lane. We've got Harry Benjamin, our lead commentator, up in the commentary box alongside former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson is also with us. Guys, we've already had a qualifying session this weekend, of course, setting the grid for the sprint race, which we saw earlier on. Jolyon, is it a case of copy-paste, or are you expecting something different from this qualifying session?
Well, I think there's a few unanswered questions, which hopefully we'll find out in the next hour. McLaren, number one. Can they put together a full qualifying hour? And can Lando Norris find the pace that he showed yesterday, but didn't put together at the crucial time? He was the fastest man in the qualifying session for the sprint, but made a mistake in the final run. Could have been maybe on pole, ended up ninth. He's going to be looking for better. Ferrari maybe are going to be looking for more of a challenge as well. Leclerc didn't have any practice time really before putting on the front row in sprint qualifying yesterday. Now he's had some more laps, and everyone has had a chance to work on the cars since the sprint as well. So I think there's still plenty of unknowns and plenty of teams that are going to be looking and trying to beat Verstappen.
You say the teams have had a chance to work on the cars. Of course, this is a new regulation, isn't it? Because the cars last year used to stay in Parc Ferme and stay in those conditions between these sessions. So it's all a bit of a different setup this year, isn't it, Andrew? And do you think that's a good thing? It means that the teams and drivers can really maximise their performance rather than being stuck with something that they don't like.
Well, you can see it both ways, Rosanna, can't you? I mean, this is only the second race that we've seen this new format. There were pluses to the old one because it could mean that if a team was dominating, and they messed their car setup up in the first practice session, then they were stuck with it for the rest of the weekend. I think that's how we got George Russell winning in Brazil in 2022, for example. On the other hand, this gives the other people a second chance to have a go, especially like Leclerc, for example, as Jolyon was saying. He could be real trouble for Verstappen in this session, and it gives Norris a second chance as well. So let's see how that plays out. But I think we're still waiting we'll give it a rest of the season before we make a definitive judgment on it.
Yeah, nice. I like it. You want to have some more experimentation, Andrew, before casting your judgment. Harry, some drivers using the sprint race as a little bit of a test session to see how the tyres were performing. The soft tyre, there's a big question mark on how that's going to perform in this power hour, the qualifying session. What are you expecting? You reckon it's going to withstand this heat? It's very hot and humid here in Miami, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, as the sun beats down on the track. I mean, we saw in sprint qualifying yesterday, trying to get one lap on the softs, really all you can kind of get before it then tends to fall off. That will be the crucial moment. But of course, the first part of qualifying will lose the bottom 5 drivers. It will be an escape into that top 16 for the first bit of qualifying.
So, as I said at the top of the show, Max Verstappen took the win earlier on today for the sprint race. That means he has 118 points to his name, 27 points clear of his teammate Sergio Perez. Obviously, no points right now during qualifying, but it's all setting things up nicely for the Grand Prix tomorrow. And Charles Leclerc from Ferrari, of course, saying how important qualifying is going to be this afternoon. And Jolyon, it's a street track, isn't it? So is it easy to overtake, or is it a bit like a Monaco street track?
Well, it's not easy to overtake, as we saw in the sprint earlier on. Daniel Ricciardo had a great drive, finishing 4th and held up a bunch of cars further back. Magnussen tried to do the same, but incurred a host of penalties in doing that. But it's not that easy to overtake from what we've seen. The DRS zone is only in place halfway down the straights, which means it's not the drive-by passes that you get in other places like China last time out. So qualifying is important around this second. It's not Monaco, on the other hand, either. It's possible to overtake, but you don't want to rely on that for tomorrow.
No, and all the teams are ready for qualifying now. The drivers are queuing up at the end of the pit lane, waiting for the green light. Harry Benjamin, you ready to turn up the heat? It is time for qualifying to set the grid, and I'm surprised they're all whizzing to get out there. Sometimes they wait, don't they? But they are all raring to go to set the grid for the Miami Grand Prix.
Yeah, they all want to get the best track position possible. We're nearly set then for qualifying ahead of the Miami Grand Prix. 18 minutes and counting. Green light on at the end of the pit lane. There's no need to turn up the heat. It's plenty hot enough in Miami around this international autodrome. 3.36 miles, just over 5.4 kilometers, 19 corners, 7 to the right and 12 to the left. We're on the southeastern coastline of Florida in the Sunshine City, and the sun is certainly shining down as we get set to form the grid for Sunday's Grand Prix. This has been the host of the second sprint of the season, but that is all done and dusted now. It is full focus on the Grand Prix, which will take place tomorrow. You can hear that in the full from 8:30 in the evening across 5 Live. But, Jolien, first laps will come on the board shortly. We've seen in the past, in previous qualifyings, likes of Charles Leclerc finding the wall. You need to try and get that bank lap in early doors.
Yeah, of course, yeah. You need to try and alleviate a little bit of pressure. You never know when there could be a yellow flag late in the day, especially on these sort of street circuits with the walls lining the track. Traffic was a bit of an issue in Q1 yesterday as well. Valtteri Bottas was penalised for nearly crashing into Oscar Piastri. It was such an egregious impeding for Bottas. Everyone is trundling out the pits together. There's still cars. You can hear just an idling in the pit lane trying to get out on circuit and find a bit of space. And the first cars out there are going to trip over them. Logan Sargent almost coming through to start a lap.
Yeah, cars still making their way out. This is the sound of Carlos Sainz just teetering out of the pit lane. So let's head over to Rosanna for an update.
Well, good news for McLaren fans. Lando Norris, who spun out early on in the sprint race, McLaren have confirmed that they have managed to fix his car, so he is good to go for this session. And got to have a think about a couple of other things that have happened since the sprint race. Not only has Ed Sheeran been performing, we've also had a support race here or there and some cement dust laid down on track, so it's going to be... That's Daniel Ricciardo's radio. A little bit of traffic in the pit lane, not great for the drivers as they are, as you say, Harry, teetering out onto track. But yes, track could be a little bit slippy. We know track evolution's high here. And also, just a word on the conditions. Yes, beautifully hot, humid, sunny, but quite breezy as well. And that's obviously going to affect things. These cars are so sensitive, especially the Williams. We always say that, don't we? But yeah, a pretty windy day here in Miami.
Thanks, Rosanna. Yeah, Logan Sargent, the American home hero on his first opening laps under the sun. Just worth noting as well that that incident that the team radio was referring to, Daniel Ricciardo, it was Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber that just slid forward into the fast lane and caused Ricciardo to hit the brakes. That has been referred to race control and has been noted and has actually just been updated to being investigated after this session.
Yeah, it was as they were stationary and queuing to get out of the pits, so it was just about trying to find your place in the queue. Occasionally we've seen the last few races that can be a moment. Didn't look like there was a lot in it to me, to be honest, but obviously RB on the back of a nice fourth place with Ricciardo, trying to dob in another team and give them a penalty.
Sargent bails out of his lap at the end of his first run. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton on his first flyer, making his way through turn 13, then the steep incline through the slow chicane of 14 and 15, bounces over the curbs, couple of steers on the wheel to get it through the left-hander onto that long 1.1 kilometre back straight. Fastest lap times coming in so far. Hulkenberg up there with a 1:28.9, but slowly getting into this qualifying session. Lewis Hamilton, who's had a best qualifying of 6th around this track back in 2022, makes his way to the end of the braking zone, peeks out through the left and right-handers that finish off this lap and will take the line. DRS Open, fastest lap in these early stages, a 1:28.8 after a frustrating sprint race for the 7-time champion.
It didn't look like there was a lot of grip out there for Hamilton on that lap. It was wide at the apex of the final corner and slithering a little bit through the lower speed as well. So the track's going to rubber in all the way through, as we're expecting, and they're all on the soft tyres. This time yesterday, medium tyres were enforced for SQ1, SQ2. Now everyone has more laps to get a handle on these softs that cause a few head scratches after SQ3. Verstappen thought he'd done a mediocre lap to take pole. Ricciardo didn't think he'd done great, but was fourth. Norris knew he'd done badly and ended up ninth. No one could get a handle on the soft tyres. I think that's why everyone's gone out very quickly, done slow out laps, and they've got to try and work out what sort of temperatures, how to drive these soft tyres, not just on the flying lap, but also on the out lap.
Fastest lap from Carlos Sainz, a 1:28.1. This is the sound of his teammate Charles Leclerc on his opening gambit. Makes his way to the line. Can't quite pip his teammate in these early stages. Johnny, how impressed are you with Charles Leclerc this weekend, considering he didn't really have any free practice session?
He did very well, but we know he's got one lap pace. I think he's feeling a little bit of pressure as well because of the start of the season that Carlos Sainz has had, and he knew that he needed to respond. Had a bit of a shocker in the 1 hour of practice, spun straight away, but did what Charles Leclerc does in qualifying yesterday and hooked it up.
He was even talking about it afterwards, Jolie. In fact, he wasn't even asked, but he volunteered it himself, that people have been talking about his performances in qualifying, beaten by Carlos Sainz in a couple of races. It was only like a couple of races, it wasn't like a big deal. But he was feeling the pressure, and he said it was good to be able to shut people up as a consequence of that. But of course, he could easily have found himself in the same position again, because he dropped it on his first lap basically in practice, and that's how he was in that situation of not having any practice for qualifying.
But he did well as a result to dig out a second place and have a really consummate sprint race as well earlier on, finishing second, splitting the two Red Bulls. Ferrari's 1 and 2 to start this Q1, and it is now Sainz back ahead of Leclerc. And overall, I've actually been really impressed with Sainz, as much as people are saying, oh, maybe Leclerc's lost it slightly and Sainz is right there. You've got to say it's impressive what Sainz is doing in the Ferrari to be putting the pressure on Charles Leclerc as well after 5.5 races.
That didn't sound very out of the pits, the clutch.
Snap over that.
That's Max Verstappen on the radio. That didn't sound very good out of the pits, referring to the clutch. Verstappen, who's not been quite at ease, which, even though he did set pole and take the sprint race win, it hasn't been the smoothest of weekends for Red Bull and Max Verstappen compared to every other weekend.
No, he's had to work a little bit for it, but it's not been smooth for many of his rivals either. Mercedes, awful so far this weekend. Neither driver making it into the top 10 in qualifying yesterday. Neither driver scoring a point. Hamilton in the wars at the first corner and then speeding in the pit lane earlier on. So they're not in the mix. Just spoken about Charles Leclerc having a spin and missing practice. We have covered off Lando Norris. Aston Martin are both in the wars earlier on as well. So whilst it's not been plain sailing for Verstappen, he's had probably a better run of it than all of his rivals.
To the line then for the Red Bull, which will take the start-finish straight and make his way down towards turn 1. Max Verstappen. A reminder, 10 minutes left of this first part of qualifying, Q1. We will eliminate everybody from 16th down to 20th. So it's a fight to get out of the bottom 5 positions. Still waiting for a lot of the field to set their first lap times. Verstappen now making his way through the arcing left-hander of turn 7. Feeds into 8. Bit of traffic in front of him in the form of the Mercedes. Gets nicely out of the way. I think that was Lewis Hamilton. It was. He's got Ricciardo a little bit in front of him as well, but should be able to get out of the way. DRS open for the Dutchman. Into the left-hander of turn 11. Saw a lot of moves there during the sprint, but what the sprint did identify, Jolien, was that qualifying is going to be crucial because overtaking is not easy here.
No, there's two very long straights. Verstappen just exits turn 16 and heads on to the second of 2, and then there's the start-finish straight as well, which is not short either. So there's 3 DRS chances, but the DRS zones are quite a long way down that straight, and slipstreaming and the DRS didn't seem to be all that powerful in making the move. So qualifying more crucial than we might have suspected heading towards this circuit. Verstappen very quick on this lap as well. Fastest middle sector for him. Track getting better, and Verstappen goes to the top.
1:28.023 from the reigning champion, Sainz, Leclerc, Perez, Bottas, who just comes across the line now in the Sauber, gets himself up into the top 5 in these early stages. Still waiting for lap times for the likes of Gasly, Joe and Sargent.
Yeah, that Bottas lap just shows that the track is coming to the cars now as well. Bottas up to 5th in a Sauber. Now, he was one of the drivers that was out in Q1 yesterday. Both Saubers, both Williams and Pierre Gasly trying to find a bit of form around this place, trying to find something closer to a top 10 start and sneak a point for their campaigns, they've got a bit of work to do. Logan Sargent, one of them, crosses the line and does the fastest final sector of anyone. The track is really coming good.
He did that yesterday as well, did Logan Sargent. Unfortunately, this time last year, could only manage 20th and last on the grid. Had a tough sprint qualifying as well, in a time where Logan Sargent and his future is coming under more and more scrutiny, hoping that the home crowd will spur him on to a good result at the moment. Sargent 11th, but you're right, the track evolution gripping up all the time. Stroll just goes up to 6th, Hulkenberg is 5th, Hamilton fastest of anybody in the first sector. Joe Guan Yu's at a decent first sector as well. The two Alpines out there, personal best for them. Sainz and Leclerc, the two Ferraris as well, going for another lap as Alonso goes up to 6th.
Yeah, the time's tumbling. 7.5 minutes left on the clock. We've got Hulkenberg 5th, Stroll up to 7th, Bottas still 8th. Ocon finding time, Gasly finding time, the two Alpines that were struggling to get out of Q1 earlier in the season, starting to find a little bit more pace. Ocon's making a regular appearances in Q2 now. He'll be aiming for the same again. Hamilton comes through and goes 3rd, the two Alpines behind. Gasly only 15th, and Ocon chasing him over the line. Has beaten his teammate every single qualifying so far this year. Goes up to 7th. That's a great lap from Ocon.
Esteban Ocon, in an upgraded Alpine as well, is having quite a good time of it, representative to where Alpine are at the moment, which is on the back foot. But Ocon absolutely wringing the neck of that Alpine. Tell you who's to watch out for. Lando Norris most likely should have taken pole position for the sprint qualifying, for the sprint race today, but for a mistake in the qualifying session, a heavily upgraded McLaren has seemingly found a lot of lap time. Piastri also has the upgrade as well, but only 50% of it, and is showing well too. Piastri on a lap, currently down in 13th. This is the sound of Lando Norris, who is currently in 16th, but looking to rapidly rise up the order. He's 14 thousandths down, though, on Sainz in the middle sector.
Yeah, so Sainz has just hit the top spot ahead of Verstappen and Leclerc. Hamilton 4th, and they're all separated by less than a quarter of a second, so it's tight. Piastri now jumps up into 3rd in the other McLaren. Now Norris accelerates out of the final corner, brings it flat out to the left through 18. Turn 19 as they come past our commentary box is a flat out right with the DRS open, and Norris jumps to 2nd.
A 1:28.017, less than a tenth between Sainz and Norris in these early stages of qualifying. Everybody from 16th downwards will be eliminated in the next 5.5 minutes. That's currently Sargent, Gasly, Magnussen, Joe and Albon. No unusual suspects there, but they'll all get another go in these closing stages. And, as we've just seen a replay, Jolie, and tell you what, was that the RB of Daniel Ricciardo finding the wall?
It was just a glancing blow of the wall on the right rear of Ricciardo coming through turn 16. Here's Verstappen. So that was Verstappen bemoaning a bit of traffic through the first sector. He also had a little bit of tape or something stuck on his front left wishbone. It looked like it was flailing around.
Mate, what was that? Mate, did you see that? Tsunoda ruined me.
That was Logan Sargent coming into the final corner, and Yuki Tsunoda on the inside, off the racing line. How do you read that one, Jolie?
I think there is a defence for Tsunoda. He was going pretty much stationary, as you said, off the racing line. It was tight. I think he might get away with that. Sargent 16th has another lap to go to bail himself out of this one. Everyone in the pits, apart from Perez, who's just gone to the top of the times, Norris, Piastri and Leclerc. Everyone else waiting for one final effort.
Yeah, it is Perez with the fastest lap time at the moment, a 1:27.772. Sainz, Norris, Verstappen, Piastri the top 5, Leclerc, Hamilton, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Russell the top 10, Alonso, Stroll, Bottas, Tsunoda, Ricciardo the top 15, and then at risk of elimination, Sargent, Gasly, Magnussen, Joe and Albon. Rosanna.
Yeah, the cars are heading back into the pit lane. Some running in the gap, perhaps, as well as the Haas cars are released. Kevin Magnussen out. Has to wait for Max Verstappen to go to the end of the pit lane. There is Kevin Magnussen, talk of the town in the sprint race, holding people up. His teammates behind him, Nico Hulkenberg, and they're slowly trundling out of the pit lane. A word on Lando Norris. As I said at the top of the show, he's had a accident in the sprint race that prematurely ended his race. He's also been fined £50,000 for crossing the live track to return to the pit lane without permission. 25,000 of that is suspended for the remainder of the 2024 season on the condition that there's no further breach of similar nature. So he's currently P3. His pocket's going to be a little bit lighter. I think he's going to hope he can maybe even get up onto that front row, surely. Looking a little bit better for McLaren on track, not necessarily off track at the moment, guys.
Yeah, it's a hefty fine to find for Lando Norris, who is currently fourth fastest and looking rather good at the moment. Kevin Magnussen, as you mentioned, Rosanna, just eking out on track. 4 penalties, Jolyon, in the sprint, which he kind of held his hands up and go, yeah, fully deserved. But being quite open and honest about why he was doing it, really, just to protect his teammate Hulkenberg and get valid points. Leclerc on the radio.
The Williams just, they know what they do. I mean, it's far, but they know what they do. Anyways.
So Leclerc bemoaning Williams, I don't know which one it was there, being in the way for the final corner at turn 17.
I think it might have been Sargent.
And saying that they know what they're doing. They're quite a long way away, but creating a little bit of dirty air, I think, is what Leclerc was insinuating there. He's still up in 6th place. It should be safe to go through. Magnussen should have been disqualified earlier. He should have been shown a black flag. If you're going to get 4 penalties for sporting things within the space of about 10 laps and in a 19-lap sprint, that's why there's a black flag. It's fun to watch hard racing, but then when it gets a little bit silly like that, you just can't race and you can't reason with someone. And he's already shown it in Jeddah, that sort of tactic. There's got to be something in place to stop him.
Well, he was summoned to the FIA race control for unsportsmanlike behaviour as a result of receiving all those penalties. We don't yet know the outcome of that, but we'll keep you up to speed on that, and you can check out the BBC Sport website for more as it unfolds. But Magnussen now just setting on for a lap as more come out of the pits as well. Verstappen is out there, so too is Norris coming into the middle sector.
So Magnussen and Haas were quite quick yesterday. He did a great job in Q1. Hulkenberg got some points in the sprint earlier on, 7th. Magnussen was running 8th. They've had a good weekend so far on Haas's home soil, but right now K-Mag 18th. And he needs to find this final lap. So does Alex Albon, who's right at the bottom of the times and is just starting a lap as well. So they're 2 to watch out for. As Harry is Pierre Gasly, who is yet to out-qualify Esteban Ocon this year, and it's 17th. There are 3 drivers that must make inroads. And Magnussen, as we jump on board with them, heading down towards turn 11, big stamp on the brakes, is making some progress.
Kevin Magnussen qualified 4th this time last year in what was an exceptional qualifying for the Haas, but more often than not, he finds himself on the back foot when it comes to out-qualifying his teammate Nico Hulkenberg. 3-2 in that match at the moment, with Hulkenberg's future secured. He'll be going off to Sauber next year before it becomes Audi in 2026. Meanwhile, Kevin Magnussen trying to show why he should stay in that seat at Haas or go somewhere else. Personal best in the first sector, but he's found traffic in the middle sector as Magnussen. It's not going well. Meanwhile, with just 10 seconds left to go on the clock, Verstappen finds the fastest times. At risk of elimination, Sargent, Gasly, Magnussen, Joe and Albon. Magnussen will not make it through, 17th as he crosses the line.
Didn't put together a good enough lap. Traffic in the final sector wasn't a great middle sector either for Magnussen. That's disappointing to compound a difficult day for him. Sargent up to 12th, but there are many drivers improving just behind him.
Tsunoda's at risk as well. He's had an okay lap, but he's currently 15th. He needs to find time. Albon with a mega lap in the Williams to get himself up into 8th. He's just ahead of Hulkenberg, who takes the checkered flag in 9th. Ocon, what a fantastic qualifying from him in this Q1, up into 8th in the Alpine. They finally hit the minimum weight, having struggled. They've been overweight since the start of the season. They are through. Tsunoda and Ricciardo are at risk. Tsunoda first across the line. He gets himself clear, up into 9th. Can Bottas or Ricciardo find anything? Ricciardo's coming through the final few corners now. The man who finished 4th in the sprint, showcased what he's got, will not make it through into the next part of qualifying, and to compound that, he'll start at the back because he's got a 3-place grid penalty. Ricciardo takes the flag in 17th position.
Joe's going to be out right at the back of the field as well. He's not improving, so there's only a couple of spots left. Bottas trying to find a bit of time. Gasly we're riding on board with down to the final corner. Hammers the brake pedal, and he's having a really tidy lap as well. Stroll's in 15th and improving Alonso 13th should be fine. Sargent 14th is going to be really, really iffy here.
Across the line, Sargent up into 15th. Stroll goes up into 10th. Gasly gets himself up into 5th. Have Alpine found something here? Alonso at risk. He's on the bubble. He might just be okay. Bottas is out. Sargent is out. Ricciardo is out. So too is Magnussen. Zhou Guanyu takes the flag. He will not progress either. That is Q1 done and dusted. Out in 16th, Valtteri Bottas in the Sauber. In 17th, Logan Sargent in the Williams. The RB of Daniel Ricciardo, 18th, will have a 3-place grid penalty. Kevin Magnussen, 19th. Zhou Guanyu in the other Sauber, 20th and last.
Alonso made it through by 100th of a second, and he should be fine. I didn't think it would be that tight. Bottas not quite able to find enough time. Sargent out in 17th, but again, very, very close. Only 300ths away from Fernando Alonso's time. The big shock, Daniel Ricciardo.
Okay, Kev, I'm afraid we didn't make it into Q2.
I mean, what the... I just can't believe it, man. All these cars in the last corner.
Kevin Magnussen on the radio referring to traffic then that he received in the final corner. He is out 19th, and once again though it's his teammate Nico Hülkenberg who makes his way through into the second part of qualifying.
There were a couple of cars. He didn't do a very good middle sector, Magnussen, but he was still riding contention to get through. And yeah, there were a couple of cars he came across. Was one Valtteri Bottas. It looked like it might have been. Bottas is out as well. Magnussen frustrated with the traffic. It would have been tight. He was only a tenth and a half away from going through, so it might have been the difference for K-Mag. But yeah, Ricciardo, 0 to 0. I was just talking over lunch, musing about Daniel Ricciardo, and we were sort of saying it wouldn't shock me if he was out in Q1 after the highs of earlier.
Oh my... okay, we out. No real.
And that's because he's had these sort of a false dawn, which he had in Mexico last year. And again, he looked so hooked up yesterday, looked absolutely on it. And then suddenly he loses a little bit of confidence in the car and you don't quite get it in the right window. And it's gone wrong for him today. So this is where the main points normally are scored, but he got a good haul already, at least earlier on, but that's going to be a long slog from the back of the field. 1 minute is high, the next minute crashing back down to earth for Danny Rick.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, just coming back to Magnussen, we've just seen a replay of the traffic he got in the final sector. He's not wrong, he did have about 4 cars in front of him.
There's traffic all over the place. Oscar Piastri was racing with Zhou to start the final lap. That's why Zhou didn't get anything on the board right at the end when he needed it, and he was the last of the qualifiers. Sound you can hear is a replay of Daniel Ricciardo fighting at the wheel and wheel spinning out of the final corner. He's got no rear grip, he's absolutely right. It's just so strange that he could be 4th yesterday on the soft tyre, similar conditions, and today trying to go again and he's ending up 18th. It's a real head scratcher for him, and it's the consistency. It's one thing, at least he had the high earlier on, so he can take some confidence from that, but then he's had the new chassis in China. You want him to build and keep progressing and get back to the old Danny Rick, but this feels like it just puts him straight back to square one again.
Yeah, meanwhile his teammate does go through and manages to extend his lead in the qualifying head-to-heads, 5-1 in the favour of Yuki Tsunoda. While we wait to get Q2 underway, Andrew, what have you learned? What have you picked up from that first session? What's lit up your eyes?
Well, Alonso appears to be struggling in the Aston Martin for a start. He didn't look that great in he had a difficult start to the sprint, obviously. Stuck at the back, didn't qualify that well yesterday. Wasn't that quick in that first session, so that's something. The Mercedes are still basically nowhere, 8th and 9th, Russell and Hamilton. So I would imagine one of the stories of the next session, Q2, is going to be whether they can make it through or not. Leclerc, you would expect to be higher than 7th. And Verstappen looks like, I'm afraid, he's going to take pole position.
It'll be tough to come back.
Stay tuned though, guys, stay tuned.
Those are the voices of the BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, the former Formula 1 driver Jolyon Palmer, and down patrolling pit lane is Rosanna Tennant.
That makes me sound very official, Harry. I like it. Well, we've seen as well that the stewards are going to take a look at Zhou Guanyu, a difficult qualifying session for him, finishing plumb last. At the start of the session, we saw him pushing into the queue in front of Daniel Ricciardo. We heard Ricciardo on the radio, didn't we? Complaining about that. That was at the start of the session. Zhou has also been investigated for crossing the pit lane exit. So the stewards are going to be taking a good old look at the Sauber driver after the session. So plenty going on in the stewards' room. And I have to say, as we listen to Logan Sargent's radio...
Are we good? Come on, please tell me we're in.
We P16.
Oh, what a shame.
Disappointing stuff for the home hero, of course, Logan Sargent from Florida, the US. So he was hoping for more, I'm sure, this weekend. The stewards are busy looking at Zhou's behaviour, but also my email box is being flooded by emails from the FIA about Kevin Magnussen. A couple of emails thus far about gaining the advantage by leaving the track. So I'm sure we'll have an update fairly soon as to what the stewards decided when it came to his unsportsmanlike behaviour. Was he unsportsmanlike or wasn't he? I'm sure we'll find out soon.
Thanks, Rosanna, as we get ready for the next part of qualifying. In fact, the green light is already on at the end of the pit lane. No one in a mad rush to get out. Just 15 drivers remain, and this time it'll be everybody from 11th down to 15th who will be out of this session. Jolyon, worth picking up just from that Q1. Alpine, have they suddenly found something? They brought an upgrade, in China? Both cars through.
Well, they are reportedly on the weight limit for the first time this year at this race, and they were meant to be, or supposedly, up to 10, 11 kilos overweight at the start of the year. Now, that's worth a good few tenths, and if they've managed to shed weight in a quick move, then upgraded package, new floor, and they've managed to just lose that weight in such a tight field. If they can find 2 tenths, 3 tenths, then that would launch you up the field. In fact, if Esteban Ocon, who was just 11th place, was 3 tenths further back, he'd have been out in 17th. So that's how tight the field is, and tenths make a difference, and weight is just pure lap time. If they've shifted that amongst trying to find a bit of downforce and the rest of the upgrades, the weight is such a big thing for them, and it transforms their fortunes. It was a great start for them. Gasly up in 5th. Referenced it already a couple of times. He's not had a decent qualifying so far this year. He's been out-qualified by his teammate every time, and this time suddenly a little bit more confidence.
Seems like things are moving in the right directions for the Enstone team. Of course, announced in the build-up to this weekend, ex-McLaren David Sanchez joining as Executive Technical Director. Will have overall responsibility of the technical department as Alpine try and restructure and find a way back up the grid under the direction of team principal Bruno Famin. In fact, both Alpines had pretty good form around here from last year. Qualified 8th, did Ocon, and 5th. For Gasly too, as we finally get some action in the pit lane. Cars being released almost exactly at the same time. Perez in front of Verstappen, then comes Lando Norris in the McLaren heading up his teammate Oscar Piastri. So what do we think, Johnny, we're going to see for this session? Is it 2 laps, push, or a break in the middle?
It'll be, the tyres are good for 1 lap. They're all going out in unison right now. 1 lap, they'll come back in and they'll bolt on another set of soft tyres if they need them, which pretty much everyone will, and they'll go again right at the end.
Well, the grandstand's absolutely packed out here in Miami for the 3rd running of the Miami Grand Prix. The first of 3 visits to the United States for Formula One. Will, of course, go to Austin, Texas later on in the year, and Las Vegas will host its 2nd Grand Prix in the new Strip circuit. 11 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock, counting down. 7 cars making their way out already onto the track. The remainder all coming out of the pit lane now. And the 2 Ferraris, the Azzurro blue Ferraris, they've got blue strips on the front nose and on the rear wing as well, as actually they overtake each other coming out of the pit lane exit. I think that's signs in front of Leclerc coming out and feeding into the exit of turn 1.
That looked orchestrated, as only now it's Sainz behind. So yeah. Leclerc's gone through, and that looked like it was Sainz getting out of the way for Leclerc, giving him the first position on the track between those two.
Why would they do that?
Probably just something that they've had in plan before the weekend. you can pick up a little bit of a slipstream if you're further back, and it's just simply a case of which car's going to go ahead, which car's going to be behind, and teams are very regimented with which way you want to go, and it is, in relation to slipstreaming, not a massive thing around this circuit, even though there's some long straights with DRS, but other places it is more significant. We've seen it quite a few times in the past. This is the sound the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, cruising, absolutely cruising round on his outlap. Now, you've got to go so slowly on the outlap. The tyre temperatures are critical. You've got to get them really low and make sure these soft tyres stay in then for the whole lap of a flying lap. And Mercedes are a team that have got to prove something, got to find something, because this time yesterday, neither of the two drivers, Russell and Hamilton, made it into the top 10. So they're going to be two to watch out for in this.
10 minutes, just over that then, remaining of this Q2 session. The second part of qualifying will eliminate everybody down from 11th to 15th. First lap times being set currently. Everybody peeling out of the pit lane on that outlap, and now first laps commencing. Max Verstappen making his way through turn 7 and 8. Lando Norris embarking as well in the first sector. Norris in an upgraded McLaren, finding lots of pace, was punted out of the sprint race in turn 1. We didn't get to see what that McLaren had in any kind of race trim, but certainly in one lap pace, Norris had it in bounds. Didn't quite showcase it in the end during the sprint qualifying. Gets another go now for the big points on offer for the Grand Prix on Sunday. Verstappen then just negotiating a little bit of traffic in the form of the Williams of Alex Albon as he makes his way up through the slow chicane of 14 and 15 and now finds himself on that long 1.28 kilometre back straight. DRS will get activated. The rear wing slot will open up before he slams on the brake, and it shuts under that braking. It's okay, it's a good lap so far from Verstappen, but Lando Norris is finding more time in the middle sector. Perez going quickly as well in the other Red Bull. Verstappen though, round the final corner, his opening gambit, a 1:27.972.
So he's lost a little bit of pace compared to what he did in Q1. Norris didn't do a great first sector, but he does a very good middle, and the best of all in the final sector. He goes to the top of the times. Just behind him is his teammate, and Oscar Piastri now goes ahead.
Piastri to the top of the times with a 1:27.7. Norris second, Verstappen, Tsunoda, Perez the top 5. Lap times coming in all the time though. Everybody from 11th down to 15th will be eliminated. Leclerc in the Ferrari is flying on his first opening lap. Fastest of anybody in the first sector and in the middle sector. Sainz not able to match him, and across the line as Charles Leclerc just crosses the line to go fastest in this second part of qualifying. The big names we've already lost. Daniel Ricciardo, who finished the sprint race early today in 4th, out in 18th. The second part of qualifying happening now. Lando Norris in an upgraded McLaren, looking very quick. Might be a challenge for Verstappen, but he looks good at the moment. Thank you for that. Well, we just had a little dive into 5 Live. So 7.5 minutes left of this Q2 session. Leclerc is fastest, Piastri second, Norris, Sainz, Verstappen the top 5, Tsunoda, Perez, Russell, Ocon, Hamilton the top 10, and then at risk of elimination, Stroll, Alonso, as we still wait for the first gambits from Gasly, who pops himself up into 9th. Albon as well needs to come through with a lap time. He's in the final sector at the moment. And Nico Hülkenberg, we know how good he is over one lap, and he proves that straight away. He goes 6th fastest, does the Hulk.
Hamilton down to 12th position after those first laps, so he's got plenty of work to do in the second run. As there's a yellow flag out on circuit, I'm not completely sure why that is. This is a replay of Lando Norris. The sound you can hear, just clattering over the curbs a little bit in the middle sector, but that didn't cost him too much time. He still was quite quick in that sector, just didn't hook it up in the first part. Leclerc's lap is the best lap of the weekend so far. So Charles Leclerc is finding a good chunk of time. Verstappen didn't maximise what he just did there. There's still more in there. But Andrew, I think your assertive Verstappen prediction earlier on, are you still going with it?
Well, if I tell you who's on used tyres and the others are on new tyres, will you stop doubting him?
I never doubt him. I'm bringing the jeopardy, Andrew.
We had a momentary yellow flag a moment ago. It was for Alex Albon, who ran deep coming through the final corner, or it was actually turn 17, which feeds into 18. Here's what he has to say.
They're just absolutely destroyed. I can't get them to last more than 6 corners.
Albon then destroying his soft tyres, struggling to make them last. At the moment, he is 15th and last, hasn't been able to get a proper lap time on the board, will need to go again. At risk of elimination. Pierre Gasly is 10th on the bubble, just in front of his teammate Esteban Ocon. This is proving to be a good session for the Alpine drivers, who are showing a turn in form. Then comes Hamilton in 12th, Stroll 13th, Alonso 14th, and Albon, who is embarking, finishing off as that, will need to go again. So we've got Hamilton at risk of elimination. His teammate Russell is up in 9th. The two Aston Martins seem to be struggling as well. They had a decent sprint qualifying, but at the moment finding themselves down in 13th and 14th. And Stroll ahead of Alonso, which he was in the sprint qualifying as well. So Alonso isn't too happy with the Aston Martin cars so far this weekend, it seems.
There's opportunities out there with Aston Martin struggling. Hamilton's still not finding the right balance in his Mercedes. Russell barely finding much more in the other, down in 9th position. There's big opportunities out there for some. Hulkenberg has already picked up a couple of points this weekend and is trying to gun for a top 10 here. He's running in 6th at the moment, ahead of Tsunoda in 7th. And there's a fight for the Alpines as well. Gasly just ahead of Ocon. They're 10th and 11th. Now, of course, Hamilton, Stroll and Alonso will all be looking to find a little bit more pace. And Alonso particularly was a good half a second away from getting into the top 10 provisionally. So he must have made a mistake somewhere out there. But I think there's opportunities in there for some of the lesser teams.
Opportunities galore as we get into a little bit of a lull now before we get the final flyers. Just about 4 minutes and 20 seconds remain. Rosanna.
Yeah, Mercedes getting ready to release George Russell from the Mercedes garage. Tyre blankets off, a little bit slow to leave, and off he goes into the pit lane, out onto the track. And Jolyon, you were talking earlier about slipstreaming here in Miami. Goodness me, all the cars piling out. I was just watching George Russell leave the Mercedes garage, but everyone else also piling out into the pit lane. Talk about the slipstream. Charles Leclerc was also talking about how difficult dirty air is here to manage in Miami. Where does the difference sort of change between slipstream and dirty air?
Well, a slipstream, you're gaining on the straights from following the car ahead. Dirty air, you're then losing in the corners. So it's about finding a trade-off. Typically, you want to be sort of 7-8 seconds back. And it's just a balance. Really, it's all about finding a bit of clear space around this circuit. Other tracks with longer straights, you can gain a little bit more from the slipstream than you lose on dirty air. Here, I quite like that everyone's just, again, rolling out in unison. Everyone has got exactly the same run plan written down, and they're leaving the garage together, literally idling out of the pits. Gasly getting waved down the end of the pit lane, almost had to do a 3-point turn to negotiate that to get himself into the fast lane. But it does then mean that they're all on fast laps together in theory, and they shouldn't trip over themselves. One flying lap for each of the drivers left to book their place into Q3.
We were talking yesterday about how we quite like the idea of one-shot qualifying. Well, it's almost turning into a little bit of that. The track evolving with every single lap. Some struggling to keep the tyres in check all the way through 5.4 kilometres that make up the Miami International Autodrome. But just over 2.5 minutes remaining then, and now it is crunch time for those who are further down the order. Russell is in 9th, Gasly is in 10th, and then in that elimination zone, the other Alpine of Ocon, Lewis Hamilton in 12th, Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, the two Aston Martins, and Alex Albon and the Williams, who hasn't done a proper competitive lap time yet, needs to get one on the board and haul himself up the order if he can.
Aston Martin on the limit there.
Yeah, copy. I've seen that.
Charles Leclerc on the radio referring to the Aston Martin being released into the path of his Ferrari in the pit lane. Leclerc's had a few skirmishes in the pit lane so far today.
That was a nothing. I don't think the stewards, they've had plenty to deal with Kevin Magnussen earlier on. I don't think they're going to trouble themselves with that one as the Aston Martin was released ahead. So pressure on Perez, also in 8th, who, like Verstappen, has just run a used tyre so far. That's left him with a little bit of work to do. Needs to get a clean lap in, cannot afford a mistake or to trip over someone with a yellow flag as well. Perez 8th, Russell 9th under pressure. Gasly at the moment has done a great job in 10th. If he can stay there, that'll be superb from him. And then those behind need to find a bit of pace and not a huge amount to shuffle their way into the top 10.
Fernando Alonso on his flyer at the moment. Little bit of traffic in front of him as he completes sector 1 and makes his way down through towards turn 9, and turn 10 starts to snake slightly to the left, taken flat out in these Formula 1 cars around this semi-permanent street circuit that surrounds the Hard Rock Stadium, home to the Miami Dolphins NFL team. Stroll finding time as well in the first sector. Hamilton embarks on his final flyer too.
Alonso's first sector's fairly average. He's a couple of tenths behind his teammate. He's a little bit wide at turn 16. I'm not sure if he brushed up against the wall on the exit as well. But Alonso, he's going to be one of the first across the line here at the end of Q2. And this is looking iffy ground for Fernando Alonso. Tsunoda up to 6th position. That's a great lap from him in the RB. Fernando Alonso then on the brakes. Gets around a bit of traffic, takes 2 turns at getting it into turn 17. Now he can drive towards the line, Harry. This is going to be tight.
Fernando Alonso currently down in 14th, qualified second back in 2023, crosses the line, and he will not make it through into Q3. Alonso takes the line, 13th fastest. What can his teammate do? Lance Stroll following round into the final sector now. Stroll in the sister Aston Martin does get through into Q3. It's roles reversed down at Aston Martin. Stroll up into 9th.
Hamilton finding pace. Hamilton with a really decent lap so far. Here is the Brit, the 7-time champ, driving towards the line. He's down in 13th. He's got to put it together.
Wow.
Up to 2nd place.
What a lap from Lewis Hamilton in the closing stages of qualifying. Who's on the bubble now? Stroll gets put down to 10th. Russell is down in 11th at the moment. So is Gasly. Ocon. Alonso won't get another go. Albon down in 15th. Russell does improve, gets himself up into 8th. We look to the 2 Alpines, been going well so far. Not great lap for Gasly, he's struggling on this lap. Ocon not great in the first sector, better in the middle sector. Albon really only getting this one flyer to find himself up the order. Can he do it across the line for Ocon first? It's 13th only for the Frenchman, behind his teammate. This the sound though of Alex Albon in the Williams.
The Williams has been good in the final sector. He's 10th and a half down on Nico Hülkenberg, who is through and in 10th position on the bubble right now for a place in Q3. Albon 15th. He's got to find a little bit of time. He's got to find a lot in essentially one corner of the final sector. Here he comes through the left, flashes through the right, opens the DRS.
Albon to the line, it's only enough for 14th. He pips Fernando Alonso. Gasly took the line as well, 12th fastest for him behind Stroll. Hülkenberg just makes it through up into Q3 in 10th. Hülkenberg continues his run of form of getting into 11 Q3 since the beginning of last season. Out then in Q2, 11th for the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll, 12th for the Alpine of Pierre Gasly and his teammate Esteban Ocon behind him in 13th. The Williams of Alex Albon in 14th, and Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin 15th.
2 tenths separating 10th to 15th. Really, really close around that. Small margins of the order of the day in this season around the midfield, if not the front of the pack. But I think Alpine will be happy, 12th and 13th. Gasly will be happy out qualifying his teammate for the first time this season. Aston Martin are going to be the team really wondering what on earth is going on this weekend. Alonso, great form in qualifying last time out in China, top 3 in the wet and the dry, 15th, and pretty slow on both laps there.
Aston Martin have brought upgrades this weekend as well, but with both cars adding Q2, Fernando Alonso has up until this point reached Q3 at every race this season. That now comes to an end.
So, at the end of that session, Verstappen bolted on a set of new tyres finally.
Good effort, mate. That was unlucky there. It was very close. It was a good lap at the end.
That's the
I'm really surprised with the drop from Q1 to Q2, man.
Radio to Lance Stroll. You could hear Lance then surprised at the drop, and he actually was slower in Q2 than he was in Q1. Alonso not finding much either. You'd expect to find a little bit more with natural track evolution, but inconsistency of balance then potentially for Aston Martin, not able to put it together. Verstappen on new tyres, not as quick as Charles Leclerc in Q2. There we go, Andrew. There we go. It's game on.
I did say at the beginning that Leclerc could challenge Verstappen, didn't I?
Oh, we're backtracking now, I think.
No, I think I just...
If we say enough things
Exactly,
all the time, we're going to be right.
Cover
The
all
thing
your
is-
bases.
Look, I don't want to put a Debbie Downer on it, right? But we know that even if Leclerc beats Verstappen to pole, Verstappen's still going to walk away in the distance in the race.
Jeopardy.
There is no jeopardy.
He started
in
ninth
Formula One
last year, didn't he?
2024.
Romped it.
Leclerc did end up as fastest in that session. Verstappen, Hamilton, Piastri and Perez, the top five. So Perez not able to match his teammate so far in this qualifying session. Right then, we'll get into Q3 shortly. The top 10 shootout, the battle for pole. Before we do that, let's check in with Rosanna.
Yeah, I've been having a little listen to what Daniel Ricciardo's been saying. Finished P18, obviously with a penalty for tomorrow's Grand Prix, but he was saying the difference between the tyre sets was huge. Just the total different style of grip he was having to deal with. So a really interesting session for him, and obviously a disappointing one following his sprint race success, finishing P4. Oh, I was watching on in the Williams garage as Alex Albon crossed the line to go 14th. They seemed very disappointed. Logan Sargent already out in P17. Albon will start from P14. Disappointing, I think, for the Williams. Not sure. Maybe they were expecting more. I'm not sure if I was. But I'm really impressed with Nico Hülkenberg and Yuki Tsunoda, the remaining Haas, the remaining RB, having a great session, those two drivers. Yuki was 9th in that particular part of the session, and Hülkenberg P10, scraping into the top 10 shootout. So, yeah, a really interesting session coming our way for the final part of qualifying.
Thank goodness for Ricciardo there was a sprint this weekend, because otherwise the pressure that he's already under right now heading to Miami, he's had a pretty tough start to the year. China was maybe a slight bit of improvement, but Tsunoda was so out of sorts that it was difficult to get a comparison. And without the sprint, and without seeing Ricciardo at his best again, starting 4th, finishing 4th, running even in the top 3 early on, this would be another bit of a horror show for him, down in 18th and struggling with grip on a set of tyres and not putting it together. Whilst Tsunoda continues and gets all the way through to Q3, we know he can do it from the sprint, but it's got to be just a frustration for him that one day it's going well and the next he's back to Daniel Ricciardo wondering where on earth the pace is compared to his teammate.
Well, he was always going to be on the back foot come the Grand Prix because he has this 3-place grid penalty hanging over him from the last time. But suddenly the pressure surely is just massively back on now. How can you suddenly be P4, keeping Carlos Sainz behind you, and then where did he end up? 18th pre-penalty, while teammate Tsunoda up in 9th and flying again.
There was 3/10 between them in Q1. It's small margins, and a little bit of grip, bit of a mistake, a slide here or there can make a big difference. But yeah, it's the 3-place grid penalty you got to blank from your mind when you turn up for a qualifying. He got that for overtaking Hülkenberg under safety car in a sort of bizarre situation in China after he was whacked by Lance Stroll. So you've got to blank that out. He's known he's had that for 2 weeks, and then you've got to turn up, and it's just about going as fast as you can, which is a driver's. I love the feeling of qualifying. It's the car in perfect trim through a weekend, hooking up 19 corners, trying to put all the lap together, no mistakes, no lockups, no slides, and you're not thinking, oh, I've got a penalty, so I'm doomed anyway. It's about giving it your best shot, and if he qualified 4th again, he'd start 7th, and that's a great shot at points. Not that you'd expect him to be necessarily 4th again, but he did yesterday, so you got to hope for something like that again and negate that 3-place grid drop. As it is, just sort of compounds a really tricky day. Well, not even a tricky day, he had a great morning, just a tricky afternoon.
It's been downhill since lunch for Daniel Ricciardo. Tsunoda, his teammate, making it through into Q3 once again, while it's his 4th Q3 appearance of the year, 4th time out of 6. Ricciardo hasn't been able to get through into Q3 in any Grand Prix so far this season. Right, we're almost ready to head back out on track. For 12 minutes, the green light will come on at the end of the pit lane for Q3, and the fight for pole is on. Could anyone upset Max Verstappen? Could he take a 7th consecutive pole position, or could Charles Leclerc cause an upset? Lewis Hamilton had a great end to the lap as well in Q2, ended up 3rd fastest at the end of Q2, and Lando Norris in that upgraded McLaren, well, so far he hasn't quite shown the blistering pace we saw in sprint qualifying, but you can't rule out that upgraded McLaren.
He's going on medium tyres, Norris, That's the tyre set, the compound that he used in qualifying yesterday. He had to use it in SQ2, and it was the fastest time of the whole qualifying yesterday. He's run medium tyres already, and it looks like he's not very happy on the softs. And he's going to go for the mediums with everyone else on the softs, and he's definitely on the mediums, the yellow wall, as he leaves the pits. Everyone else seems to be unanimously deciding the soft is better, as all the theory would suggest, but Norris obviously not feeling very comfortable on the soft tyres.
Let's see what Norris can do. You're absolutely right. The only driver out there going on to the medium compounder tyre, as everybody, 6 drivers emerging from the pit lane at the moment.
But Norris's lap on the mediums yesterday was still right there with Verstappen and Leclerc from Q2 today. So he was really quick on that medium tyre, and that's what got everyone enthused about these McLaren upgrades. Then he switched to the soft, made a mistake, and was 8/10 adrift in 9th. If he just replicated the lap he did yesterday, he's going to be in contention, let alone with a bit of track evolution and learnings and finding out how to maximise the upgrade package. That's got to be the logic for Norris. And he'll have another run to chuck on a set of soft tyres if he wants to change plans later on in this Q3.
Well, Lando Norris qualified a best 8th here back in 2022. Wasn't the race to be for McLaren, and that was a tough one for them. 17th for him back in 2023. This time last year, that was before, of course, they introduced their big upgrade in Austria, which saw them leap up the field. Just over 10 minutes then remaining of this final part of qualifying as we continue to set the grid for the Miami Grand Prix, which you can hear in full live on BBC Radio 5 Live. Will be on air Sunday, build up from 8:30, lights out from 9 o'clock in the evening, as cars now, 10 of them all out on track, gearing up for their first flies. Lewis Hamilton had a great end to Q2. They believe there is unlocked potential in this car, but they are frustrated at the moment that things are not going Mercedes' way. They're finding themselves more often than not out of contention. Can Hamilton or Russell, who were both out in SQ2 yesterday, find anything in Q3 this afternoon?
Yeah, if there's unlocked potential in there, I think it's locked and bolted at the moment for Mercedes. They're throwing a lot at it, trying to set up changes all the time. Hamilton has been trying all sorts in the early races, but not able to find pace apart from the wet in China.
No, we've been trying to work out how to say this. Just remember, this track rewards good exit, good change of direction.
That was Lando Norris's radio, trying to work out how to save us. So this sounds like there is trouble brewing down on Norris's side of the garage. They're not confident.
No, I wonder if there's a potential mechanical thing and they're trying to work out how to drive around issues, or if they're just simply missing pace and reminding Lando how to drive. Bizarre call there for Lando on his out lap. Now he's launching into a flying lap. He has been quick, and I think they want to get back to the pace that they showed yesterday. And he's done a decent first sector, has Norris. Verstappen, the fastest man of anyone through the first sector.
Russell, fastest of anybody in the middle sector. First lap times coming courtesy of Nico Hülkenberg, a 1:29.1 on his opening gambit in the Haas. The German into Q3 once again. He's immediately displaced by almost half a second by Lewis Hamilton, who goes to the top. Tsunoda, third fastest, but he bailed out of his lap towards the end, so he'll need another go. Russell goes to the top.
Leclerc quicker than Verstappen through the first sector on lap 1. Here is the Dutchman now driving towards the line, fastest in the middle sector, aiming to get ahead of his teammate, who's done a pretty solid lap in the first Red Bull to come across the line. 27.7 for Perez, but there's more in there for Verstappen.
Perez fastest so far, 3/10 between him and Russell, but his teammate fastest of anybody in the middle sector. Round the final corner, takes that provisional pole position by half a second. Verstappen, Perez, Russell, Hamilton, Hülkenberg, the top 5 as we await lap times from the 2 McLarens. Norris on that medium compounder tyre goes third fastest, ahead of the Mercedes. But what about the Ferraris? Leclerc, fastest of anybody in the first sector, second fastest at the end of his lap.
Carlos Sainz up to third in the other Ferrari, so Verstappen with Leclerc a 10.5 down, Sainz 2/10 down on the world champion in first position. Then it's half a second in the end back to Sergio Perez, who's left plenty on the table, and in fact Piastri now gets up to fourth.
Hamilton on the radio saying he has no grip. He's down in 8th behind his teammate Perez, actually fastest of anybody in the final 2 sectors. Leclerc has the fastest first sector, so it's not going well for Perez in the first sector. He ended his lap in 5th. It's Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Piastri, Perez the top 5, Norris, Russell, Hamilton, who's down in 8th. Then it's Hulkenberg and Tsunoda who rounds out the top 10.
Yeah, McLaren have lost plenty of pace then, haven't they? Norris 6th on the medium tyre. Is he going to switch now to a soft and just try and work out how to drive what must be the quicker tyre? He was the only driver on the mediums in that one. 6th position. It's not terrible from there. Half a second away. In theory, you'd put on a set of softs and get quite close to the action. But can McLaren get their head around how to do that? Piastri in the other car has done a solid job, up in 4th.
Max Verstappen seeking a 7th consecutive pole position with 5 minutes and 50 seconds remaining. It's Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Piastri, Perez. That's the order at the moment. Norris, who's struggling with pace now, down in 6th. Russell and Hamilton, the 2 Mercedes, languish behind in 7th and 8th. Nico Hulkenberg on his opening gambit was 9th. Tsunoda will need another run. On that first run, he's in the 1:30s, so I'm assuming he made a mistake somewhere along the line. 4.5 seconds adrift at the back. So Tsunoda, we should see again trying to fight with mainly Nico Hulkenberg. A really intense fight between those 2 teams at the moment. Haas and RB fighting it out for 6th and 7th in the Constructors' Championship. It's early days, but every point counts at the moment. RB ahead at the moment by 6 points, courtesy of Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda getting into the points in the sprint earlier on today.
Okay, so 5 minutes to go, but basically 1 flying lap for everyone, and all the drivers are back in the pit. So the track has fallen silent, the garage full of noise as the wheel guns are at work, replacing a set of soft tyres for a set of soft tyres. In the case of Lando Norris, replacing a medium for something else, a medium or a soft. And who is in contention for this? Verstappen, provisional pole, 10th and a half clear of Leclerc, who looks to be the main man to challenge him. Was on the front row. That was your front row for the sprint earlier on. And it is again with 1 flying lap to go. But Sainz is only 800ths away from Leclerc. It's a decent lap for Carlos Sainz as well, being in the mix. I think McLaren just looked a little bit too far adrift. There's a lot of time for Piastri to find if he wants to join the fight. He needs to find pretty much half a second. Norris is the wild card. Can he put on a set of softs and bring that to life, which might get him towards the sharp end? Or is that as good as he can do right now in 6th position?
Perez as well, half a second adrift of his teammate, but he is fastest in the last 2 sectors. So if Perez can get it together in the first sector, he'll be able to find some time as well. Half a second adrift of his teammate. We know he can't match Verstappen like for like, but to have Piastri, Sainz and Leclerc between the 2 Red Bulls is not what Red Bull ordered.
No, the pole sitter last year, Sergio Perez here. He's got qualifying form, if not race form, but that was a qualifying that was interrupted at the end with Charles Leclerc spinning off into the barriers at turn 7. A long left-hander, 6, 7 and 8. It's a sort of 1 long left, which culminates in a tightening at turn 8 and a long, crucial exit up towards turn 11, flat out through 9 and 10. Sound you can hear is a replay of Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas. Oh dear.
The Ferrari, was it beating?
Okay, that's noted, Nico.
That was Carlos Sainz, who was a little bit late in getting off the racing line, Jolien, coming into the final corner with Hulkenberg flying through.
Well, it's been cleared already by the stewards, so I thought that was a bit late for Sainz. I'm amazed that's been cleared so quickly. Hulkenberg was attacking the brakes as Sainz was peeling off the racing line, but they've cleared it, and that'll be a big sigh of relief to Ferrari, who, if they want a challenge for at least a strong chance of a podium, if not fighting with Max, who I don't know if anyone believes they can beat Max in race trim right now unless he's got his brakes locked on, then they need 2 cars up there, and they've still got a chance of doing that.
2 Miami Grand Prix held so far, 2 different pole sitters, but it's been the same race winner every time in the form of Max Verstappen. This one of the few tracks he hasn't actually set outright pole.
Hamilton leaves on mediums, and so does Russell. So the Mercedes are copying the McLaren of Norris. Norris has gone on soft, so he's copied everyone else. And there's still head scratching going on what is the fastest tyre, around 5.5 kilometres here. Everyone else now on the soft, apart from Mercedes. And we did hear Hamilton saying he had no grip and was wondering what was going on. He did a very good lap in Q2, and he lost a second there in Q3. So it's amazing how he can do one belter of a lap in Q2, and then they're completely lost when they put on another set of tyres and go again. It's very, very strange.
A minute and a half left of qualifying for the Miami Grand Prix. Will it be Max Verstappen who will take his first pole position here in Miami, or could Charles Leclerc, could a Ferrari challenge? We'll find out in just over a minute's time. Outlaps being completed at the moment. Oscar Piastri embarking on his final flying attempt. So too does Sergio Perez. Everybody on that soft compound tyre, but with the exception of the two Mercedes of Russell and Hamilton.
So Verstappen will be the first of the main contenders to start a flying lap. He crosses the line now and launches into one. Then it's going to be Norris, then it'll be Leclerc, and then it'll be Carlos Sainz. I say that, but Sergio Perez is actually on his flying lap right now, trying to find a better first sector. And it is a good first sector this time for Sergio Perez.
Yep. Last time around, Perez had the better of everybody in the second and third sectors. It was the first sector that was holding him back. That went to Charles Leclerc, who was mighty. Leclerc starts his final flying attempt at the moment. Perez going well in the middle sector too. Hamilton coming towards the end of his outlap, so we'll see what he's got. He'll get one final flyer. Hulkenberg up into ninth on his flying lap. Russell on the radio.
Tell Lewis, hurry up.
Give Lewis the hurry up. That's the message from George Russell, who is just about to start his flying lap.
Yeah, outlap chatter from the Mercedes. Verstappen's the fastest man in the first sector. He is a 1/10 quicker than Charles Leclerc, who is not finding time so far through the first sector. Perez is right in the mix here with two clean sectors.
Piastri first to take the flag. He won't be able to improve. He stays fourth fastest. How much can he hold on to that? Verstappen losing a little bit of time compared to himself in the middle sector. Perez will get up to fourth, just in front of Piastri, but he cannot find the time as Leclerc bounces over the curbs through turns 14 and 15. The two Ferraris not finding the time they need to challenge Max Verstappen.
Plenty of drivers struggling to find too much. Lando Norris is finding a little bit on his set of softs. Verstappen's through and doesn't improve. Sainz is not improving. Leclerc's not improving. It might be just down to Lando Norris.
Lando Norris will only have a few metres left. Can he find the time? No, he can't. Lando Norris in the McLaren, fifth fastest, just in front of his teammate Piastri. Lewis Hamilton currently down in 10th. Remember, the Mercedes are using the medium compound of tyre, and Hamilton, personal best in the middle sector. Coming into the final sector now, Sainz will cross the line first. He can't improve either. No one is finding time that they need. Russell not finding the time he needs either, but he's up in 7th. Russell is 7th, Hulkenberg 8th, Tsunoda 9th. Can Hamilton lift himself up from 10th? Yes, he can, but it's only enough for 8th fastest at the end of qualifying for the Miami Grand Prix. Russell finds a little bit of time in the final sector, but he stays 7th fastest. Verstappen will start the Miami Grand Prix from pole position. Alongside him will be the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz third, Perez, Norris the top 5, Piastri, Russell, Hamilton, Hulkenberg and Tsunoda the top 10.
Well, we never doubted it. Verstappen top, of course. Two Ferraris, second and third, at least splitting the Red Bulls for the race tomorrow. There was a bit of an anticlimax at the end of that qualifying.
And that is, pole position, Max.
Well, quite tricky, I guess. You just get the tyres to work. Well done. Good start again.
Very well done, Max. That's 7 in a row. Very impressive. Well done, mate.
Yeah, let's keep it going. That's definitely very good.
You could hear the anticlimactic expression in Max's voice again.
Well, it was lull yesterday, so today slightly different.
Well, 2 days and two kind of underwhelming pole positions for him, but it's pole position nonetheless. The track must have just dropped away slightly. I wonder if the wind picked up. I'm looking at the commentary box and the palm trees are not particularly swaying, but no one was able to improve. The temperatures look like they stayed pretty stable there, so slightly strange situation, but first lap counts and Verstappen is pole, with Ferraris next to him and behind him, at least splitting a Red Bull 1-2 here.
Yeah, very underwhelming end to qualifying there as Verstappen pulls into Parc Fermé, Rosanna.
He's getting out of his Red Bull very leisurely. Has a little look up at the grandstand, lifts his left arm up into the air, gives a thumbs up, and he's looking back over his shoulder to see, obviously, his competitors come into Parc Fermé as well. Fist pumps and handshakes for some of the team members, for his new trainer, Rupert, as well. All going well, I imagine, there in the camp. Charles Leclerc getting out of his car. Interesting, isn't it? Sergio Perez unable to get up there. Charles Leclerc again on the front row alongside Max Verstappen. Jolien, you said, was it windy? I can confirm it is pretty calm. So, yeah, the conditions not necessarily having an impact on the result there, but it was a strange one, wasn't it, that they weren't able to improve. The drivers just getting weighed now before, I'm sure, chatting about their session. All the photographers trying to get a snap of the top three from your qualifying session for the Miami Grand Prix.
Perez did improve on his second lap there. So did Norris. They were 4th and 5th, and they were both quicker than the Ferraris on the last flyer. They've paid the price for not doing a great job on the first lap when the track seemingly was in a better window. And Norris was on the medium tyre at that point. Perez made a mistake in the first sector. They end up only 4th and 5th in this one. Verstappen was still the fastest man on the second flyers, even if he didn't improve. If they had only done one lap, he would have had pole on either one.
Max Verstappen, though, once again, fastest of everybody. 7th consecutive pole position. That's the longest streak of his career and the longest since Lewis Hamilton's 7 in a row back in 2015. Charles Leclerc alongside him, them on the front row for the first time since the opening 2 races of the year, and Sainz will line up in 3rd spot. The 2 Ferraris right behind each other. Sainz's highest start since Australia, where he went on to win. Not sure he'll be able to quite find that come the Grand Prix tomorrow, but it is Formula One, it is racing, and anything can happen, and it will be a long, hot race tomorrow. 57 laps, and you can hear it all live on BBC Radio 5 Live from 8:30. Build up, lights out from 9 o'clock, and we'll shortly be able to hear from our pole sitter with James Hinchcliffe.
And here with your pole sitter, Max Verstappen, 38th career pole, 6 out of 6 for the season in Grand Prix qualifying. Great start to this weekend. Well, not start. You've already started. You've already done very well so far. But yesterday, you were surprised in qualifying to get the pole based on how the car felt. Did it feel a little bit better today? It looks pretty hooked up.
Yeah, I think we definitely improved the car a bit, but I don't know what it is. Every single year that we come here, I find it extremely difficult to be very consistent with the car feeling, the tire feeling over one lap. It's just super hard to make sure that, let's say, Sector 1 feels good and Sector 3 at the end of the lap. To make that like happen together it's incredibly tough. And again, today, it was really about finding that balance. I think we did okay. I mean, it's not, let's say, the most enjoyable lap out of my career just because of how slippery it is and how, like, you're not very confident on the lap, but we are on pole, and that's of course the most important.
You controlled the sprint race from the front, had a decent gap at the finish, but you even said maybe not the best car. Do you think you've improved it in race trim as well?
It definitely feels a little bit more under control, which I was looking for. So hopefully that will help us out tomorrow, but we'll find out.
Start obviously super key here. Charles got a pretty good launch. Have you looked at the start from the sprint race? Are you going to change anything for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think we know what we did wrong, what I did wrong as well. So I'm sure that if I do my things correctly and we're just very good with what we do with what we have been doing in the last few starts, then normally it should be all right.
All right, well, congratulations. Best of luck. Charles, P2, another front row start this weekend. Same front row as we saw in the sprint race, but the car looked on the absolute ragged edge out there. How did it feel from behind the cockpit? Did you leave anything on the table?
It felt so much on the limit. Obviously, it was very close until Q3, when we started to push for the last 1 or 2 tenths. We started to lose the tires in Sector 2 and 3, overheating them quite a bit. Sector 1 was actually feeling really good, but then Sector 2 and 3 we were losing too much. So today that's where we lost a little bit of time. However, the race is long tomorrow. This morning we showed a good pace, so I hope tomorrow we can put Max under a bit more pressure.
Well, you had a great start this morning in the sprint race, got alongside him, nearly got that position in the first turn. Is that, you think, your best opportunity to try to get in front off the start and really control the pace from there?
Yeah, this and keeping the DRS if we don't get past by turn 1. DRS is super powerful here, and if we lose it after the first lap, then it's always difficult to come back within DRS. So we must not lose it. But first of all, there will be the start. This morning we had a good one, and tomorrow I'll try to have an even better one.
All right, best of luck tomorrow. Congratulations on another front row start for Ferrari here in Miami. Third place teammate Carlos Sainz walks up to the cheers of the crowd. Carlos, congrats. Inside of row 2. Decent step up from sprint qualifying. How'd the car feel out there?
Yeah, honestly, a bit of a shame about this morning. Couldn't get past Daniel, but I know that the pace was there. I knew that with a clean quali I could be in the top 3, and yeah, we managed to do some clean laps. It's really tricky around here with the new soft. Every lap is a bit of an adventure. With the wind, you don't know what's going to happen, and keeping all this in mind, the laps were not too bad.
You say the wind is an issue here. Also, the temperature is very hot out there. Are you guys concerned at all about tomorrow from inside the cockpit and also from just taking care of the tires?
Yeah, it's just you always finish the lap and you feel like you could have gone so much faster having a cleaner lap. But it's almost impossible to put a perfect clean lap around here. There's always one place where you slide, one place where you overheat the tire, one place where the wind hits you different and you start struggling. So it's a very tricky balance, very tricky car. Track to drive, and yeah, that's why being P3 clean side of the road for tomorrow might be a good place to start.
Just real quick, the fans here in Miami, big cheers as you walked up here. What's it like racing in front of this crowd?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like always in Miami, really. Every time we come, every year, the fans are really, really good energy. They give us good vibes, and yeah, we enjoy coming here a lot.
All right, well, congrats on P3 and best of luck in the Grand Prix tomorrow.
That was former IndyCar driver James Hinchcliffe asking the questions to your top 3. Let's just recap your top 5 then for tomorrow's Miami Grand Prix. It's Max Verstappen on pole position. He'll line up alongside Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Carlos Sainz in the second Ferrari lines up P3 alongside Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. And Lando Norris, a disappointing session for him. P5 for the McLaren driver with a fully upgraded car. What can he do tomorrow? My thanks to lead commentator Harry Benjamin, Jolyon Palmer, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. That was an exciting session. Will we have a more exciting Grand Prix tomorrow? Well, join us to find out. We'll be live at 8:30 on BBC Radio 5 Live, and then lights go out at 9 o'clock. Hopefully you'll join us then. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.